Hello and welcome to our breakdown of UFC 316, Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2. This is Anthony and Nick joining you as always for Dine Sports. Looking forward to break down this UFC fight card this weekend. We got an awesome pay-per-view, two title fights, headlined by the rematch between Merab Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley. Nick, how are we feeling looking at this card as a whole and ahead of these title fights this weekend?
Yeah, really good card in terms of entertainment value. A lot of big names. Patchy makes his debut, the two title fights, as you mentioned, top to bottom. A lot of really fun matchups. I will say, if there is a knock on this card, I don't think there's a ton of underdogs to get super involved with, but at the same time, should be fun. In New Jersey, should be a raucous crowd. Definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good card. Prudential Center playing host to this event here. And yeah, we'll get right into it. So the main event, the Bantamweight World Championship, Merab Dvalishvili looking to defend his title again. Here facing Sean O'Malley. Dvalishvili minus 280, the betting favorite at current, with O'Malley who could be had at plus 230. We saw the matchup last year between these two. A pretty competitive fight, but you have to say Dvalishvili controlled things, fought his style fight, and was able to get the better of O'Malley over the course of those 5 rounds. His elite grappling pressure, mixing things up, controlling space, taking down O'Malley. That was the key to victory for Merab in that fight. And very often in his fights, it's executing that same exact game plan. Merab has elite cardio. A gas tank to go, 100 rounds if he had to. It's pretty evident that he can push a pace that a lot of opponents just struggle to keep. And what we saw with O'Malley in that fight too was just struggling to, find his timing, find room to make his shots land because Merab is just constantly on the pressure, whether that be throwing strikes or shooting for takedowns, just constantly moving forward, staying in your face. It's a lot to deal with. And for like a tactical striker like O'Malley, it's not something that he's really used to seeing. Having his space crowded and being forced into that gritty of a fight. The second time around, O'Malley knows what he's getting into with Merab. I don't think he can kind of look for that knockout in the same way he may have been in the first fight. He really does need to execute a better game plan over the course of a full 25 minutes here. Merab isn't really one known for his power or doesn't pose much of a finishing threat. So if O'Malley can oblige him more at the striking range, just with knowledge that a takedown isn't the end of the world, he could let his hands go a bit more. That's sort of what I'm hoping for if he is going to come and break through in this matchup. But all signs point toward Merab having a really dominant championship reign. This would feel like a big upset if O'Malley was able to pull off the win. You look at the guys that Merab has now handily beaten, O'Malley, one of them, but former champion Peter Yan, former champion Henry Cejudo, Umar Nurmagomedov in his last fight, really looked good, impressive, soiled his undefeated record. That fight was close, certainly had some closer rounds. First couple rounds going the way of Nurmagomedov, but again, Dvalishvili, what he's able to do with his cardio over the course of 25 minutes, he's just breaking these guys down. Even if this is a fight that goes 5 rounds, Dvalishvili is probably going to be winning a majority of the minutes. It's just those moments, those big exchanges that O'Malley is going to need in order to take rounds off of Merab. He took rounds 3 and 5 off of Merab in their first meeting, and I think if he's executing, that game plan of not fearing the takedown, throwing his hands more, he could put up a more competitive fight here and even steal this one on the scorecards. It's just, yeah, I'm a huge O'Malley guy. It's going to be very hard, honestly, for me to get to the window at only plus 230 after seeing that first performance. The rightful favorite is Merab. I'm not sure if I'm going to be, picking him, if I'm going to stick with my guy O'Malley getting the job done this weekend. But Yeah, I would expect a slightly more competitive fight, but it's hard to think that an immediate rematch is going to go, a different way than what we just saw.
All right. So yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much most of what you're saying. Really should be a fun fight. It is very much binary. O'Malley, obviously the better striker, better than a +3 striking differential, which is one of the best rates on the entire roster. Obviously, Merab has put up numbers in the takedown game. I mean, he's put up records in some of his fights, averages nearly 6 per 15 minutes, which is absolutely ridiculous. First time around, the fight was a little bit more competitive than I think some people were remembering. At the same time, if we look at the odds, I mean, they were near even that first time around. This time, Merab swelling to around a -280 favorite now on most books. I will say, if you are looking to back Merab, now is probably the time to do it. O'Malley, definitely a fan favorite, big favorite of the casual fan as well. We usually see a lot of money come in on him on Saturdays. We saw that last time around as well. Merab, as you mentioned, I mean, you covered most of it. Just ridiculous cardio. Guy can go forever. Even if he's not securing the takedowns he wants, he will continue to pursue them to the point that it tires out almost any opponent. O'Malley's cardio was solid. I mean, the one round he won clearly, in my opinion, was the fifth. I know he got the third and fifth on most scorecards, but the fifth was really the one round he won where he was able to kind of catch Merab with a body shot. And it was good to see that his cardio was holding up for the fifth round. A few intangibles you left out, though. Apparently, O'Malley already had surgery scheduled going into that fight. He had a torn labrum, not to the point that he had to pull out, but certainly compromised his ability to grapple in that fight camp as well as in that fight. Also, says he's getting off social media, not smoking weed anymore, really trying to square his life away inside and outside of the cage in hopes of kind of leveling up a little bit, as one would need to against an opponent like Merab, who many now consider to be the best bantamweight to ever fight in the UFC. I mean, the resume speaks for itself. The win over Nurmagomedov as a huge underdog, obviously impressive. Cejudo, Jan, Aldo, all former champions. Then the win over O'Malley at the Sphere last year. So, I mean, his resume speaks for itself. He's been tremendous. I'm on the Merab side. I will say O'Malley is certainly live for the upset. I don't know that I agree with you entirely in your saying that maybe he shouldn't just be hunting for the knockout. I still think that's his clearest path to victory here. We saw Merab kind of rocked late in that fight, albeit to a body shot, but also in fights against Cejudo and Marlon Moraes on this run, where he was visibly rocked. And in the Moraes fight, especially, I mean, if you got Mark Goddard in there instead of Keith Peterson, maybe that one is called, and the whole trajectory of Merab's career is different. But we can't really think in too many hypotheticals. At the same time, I do think O'Malley is fully prepared this time around. I do think we see a better version of him here, but it's really tough to not expect an even better version of Merab as well. There's really no reason to think he's taken any sort of step back. He did have a toe injury this camp, but Merab filming his own toe saying, I have 9 others, doesn't really matter. So I don't think that's going to be a factor here. I think we're going to see similar as the first fight, though. Merab winning most of these rounds on the scorecards. If it does go 5, I do think O'Malley's clearest path to victory is the knockout. But to your point earlier, I mean, I don't know. I think O'Malley could pull off a decision. That third round that he was awarded, I kind of thought Merab won. But yeah, I mean, we go back to the Peter Yan fight. It's not that these judges are just blatantly picking O'Malley for no reason. I heard someone bring this up recently. The reason they kind of go with the fan favorites is because they want Dana to put them on these cards again. And it's not that he's choosing them, it's the commission. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, these guys, they're not going to fix the fight for O'Malley, but in close rounds, the crowd's definitely going to be behind him, similar to what we saw in Boston and New Jersey. Just watch the press conference. Seems like they're fully behind O'Malley here. So if the rounds are close, and if we're honest, maybe they're slightly better for Merab. I wouldn't be shocked to see a few of them going O'Malley's way. Again, he is a promotional darling. Definitely better for the UFC if he wins. It would set up a trilogy, maybe a fight with Sandhagen, which is winnable for him. They were trying to make a star of him since he broke into the promotion. I think they still want to do that, but coming off 2 losses to Merab is going to be a little bit more difficult to do. So I think we covered most of it, man. I mean, the fight's already taken place. It's tough to really expect much different. I'm picking Merab. Would I be shocked if O'Malley found his chin? Certainly not. But I do think that's his clearer path to victory. He definitely has a narrow window to find that in, probably in the first couple of rounds, although he did look good late in the fifth in that last fight. So should be a fun one. I do think it's competitive, but at the same time, just tough to pick against Merab right now. He's just an absolute monster. Cardio really is a cheat code in this sport.
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy. He was such a he was like 2-1 against Umar in his last fight. It's
I
like
thought
I
Umar would win. Yeah.
can't believe I missed that one. Yeah. And yeah, so should be good for the men's bantamweight championship. Next up, we will break down the women's bantamweight championship taking place the fight prior. Kayla Harrison, minus 800, the betting favorite, as she challenges Julianna Pena for the bantamweight title. Pena could be had 5-1 currently on the money line. Um, Pena obviously winning the belt, taking it initially off of Amanda Nunes as a 5-1 underdog. But now here facing Kayla Harrison seems like an even tougher test. Stylistically, Harrison, since beginning her journey in martial arts, now 18-1 as a professional, the former two-time Olympic gold medalist, has the best grappling in this weight class and a clear edge in strength over most of her opponents. We will see Julianna Pena oftentimes in her fights confident in her own offensive grappling. But Harrison's going to win out if these two are going to be, fighting on the mat a large majority of this fight. And that is where Harrison wants it. Um, Pena's takedown defense, solid, but it's very rare for opponents to really be shooting on her. She's a BJJ purple belt. And yeah, again, just against a highly skilled
Uh,
judoka like
uh,
Harrison, or black belt, right? My
no, I was
mistake.
just gonna say her takedown defense is really not solid. 23% in the UFC.
Okay, so thank you for the correction there.
Yeah.
Again, Harrison, massive favorite for good reason because yeah, on the mat, it's going to be dominant. Even if Pena was able to stuff most opponent takedowns, what we've seen out of Harrison, especially since getting her weight down, successfully making the bantamweight limit, just no one's able to really hang with her on the mat. She's converting her takedowns at a high clip. And again, Pena, well, she does pose some threat with her offensive jiu-jitsu. If she's on her back, I really think Harrison's going to be able to control her. Seems like the much stronger woman. I don't know how she passes the tests for USADA at this point, but I'm sure earlier in her career was on some sort of cycle or the sort. But again, honestly, Olympic gold medalist. I don't want to be accusing her of nothing. Probably a clean athlete. Probably just lifetime of preparation and work. And again, culminating in this bantamweight championship, very likely on Saturday. For Pena to win, it would have to be another sort of miracle upset. I mean, she looked like a gritty brawler, getting that win against Nunes to win the belt initially. But honestly, that was more of the case of I think Nunes dealing with some things in that fight and tiring late. If Harrison's going out there looking her best, dominating the first 10, 15 minutes with her offensive grappling, I really don't see a clear path for Pena to pull off the upset here. Um, I think this is setting up nicely for Harrison to win the title here. She's a very marketable champion, obviously with the Olympic gold medals and all of that. Former champion on other promotions before. Her only loss was a professional coming up at 155 pounds too. So fighting here at 135, I think this is her home. She's making the weight. I want to see her make the weight on Friday before I bet her so confidently. But I mean, she's got to be the lock of the card. When you look up and down here, the other athletes fighting, I would feel comfortable laying 800 with Kayla. I think she should be able to get the job done.
First, I want to say you should really lay 800 on anyone in MMA. I mean, she could tear her ACL walking to the cage. We've seen weird things happen. Last week, Macy Barber didn't even make it to the cage, having seizures right before her fight, even after they played the video package. Um, don't love minus 800s, especially in women's MMA. I am on the Kayla Harrison side here. I agree with almost everything you're saying. I think she dominates. There's just a couple things I don't entirely agree with. First, you're saying 135 pounds her home. It has to be her home in the UFC. The 145-pound division is gone. it is tough for her to make this weight. She has not yet made 135 flat, which is what she needs to do here. She's given that half pound in her first two fights against Ketlen Vieira and Holly Holm. Not going to have that here. She needs to shed that extra half pound for the first time in her entire life. Has never made 135 flat before, so that's going to be interesting. She's a pro, former Olympian. I think she does it, but certainly something to keep an eye on. We're filming this right now on what is it, Wednesday, Thursday night? Definitely keep an eye on the scale. She's not going to look great, but when they do the ceremonial weigh-ins, as long as she looks fine there, I think just it's all systems go. There's probably more value on taking her either inside the distance or getting her to go to a decision. I think it's more likely than not to go inside the distance, honestly. I mean, we saw her go to decision against Vieira. That was only a 3-round fight. I have to think if that goes 4 or 5 and she's securing takedowns, she probably finds the finish there. I will say the one path to victory for Pena will be if Harrison struggles to make weight. Her cardio is a little bit compromised and she starts to fade because if Pena is anything, she's a dog. In that last Nunez fight that Pena lost, she was absolutely obliterated for the extent of 5 rounds, just getting completely battered in there, but continued to come forward, kept throwing her shots. I mean, it was sad to see. That's a tough fight to rewatch, honestly. But yeah, I mean, she is a dog. She does have 5-round cardio. So if Harrison's aggressive and trying to get her out of there and she doesn't find the finish, I think that would be the one path for Pena. Do I think that's going to happen, though? Personally, no, I don't. Again, as I mentioned when I corrected you, 23% takedown defense for Julianna Pena, taken down by the likes of Nico Montoya, of all people. I mean, Sarah McMahon's a good grappler, but we've seen just inferior grapplers to Kayla that have been able to take her down. On the feet, it should be somewhat competitive. Pena likes to throw the 1-2. I mean, that's pretty much all she does. Harrison, though, not really a great striker. She does tuck her chin. She's able to move forward. She can throw the jab a little bit. But yeah, the reach is on the Pena side here slightly. But I do think Kayla's going to push Pena up against the cage, try to take her down. If she can't, she'll win rounds on the cage. But she does need to manage that gas tank, especially knowing how much weight she's cutting for this fight. I like Kayla here. I don't love the minus 800 just at all in this sport. We've seen it at times, even in a Julianna Pena fight against Amanda Nunez, kind of come back to bite backers when they're on such a heavy favorite. But yeah, I think logic is behind Kayla here. I think the UFC wants her to win to hopefully lure Amanda Nunez out of retirement. Seems like that's very likely, regardless of how this fight plays out, but certainly a much more interesting matchup if Kayla does get the win. I think that is a fight that could headline a pay-per-view, and there's not many women's fights in the world right now that you could say that about. So I would definitely look forward to that one. But again, the takedown defense just isn't there for Pena. She's probably going to be trying to spam subs off her back. I mean, Kayla's dealt with that in the past against the likes of Pacheco, etc. I do think she gets it done. But this isn't her home at 135. Unfortunately, the UFC does not have the 145-pound weight class anymore. I mean, honestly, I think we'd get a better fight between her and Nunez if they did bring it back, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. There's like 5 or 6 girls that we know of in the world that are kind of fighting at that weight class. I mean, I don't know. It's tough, but if she makes the weight, looks good enough on the scales and the ceremonials, no reason not to like Harrison here to get it done. I mean, this has kind of been the path for her since she made her debut in the promotion. And again, some people want to knock her for not finishing Vieira last time out. Again, that was only a 3-round fight. She was dominating that 3rd round. Vieira looked really good last week against Macy Chiasson. So that is no slouch. Vieira definitely a much bigger woman too compared to Julianna Pena. So in some ways, that could have been an even tougher matchup. So I like her here. I think she gets it done inside the distance. I am on Kayla Harrison to win the UFC title, add it in her trophy case to the PFL $1 million championships, the 2 gold medals, and everything else. Definitely good for the sport to get her a win here.
All right, next up, we will look at the featured bout at middleweight. This fight originally scheduled to take place in Mexico City, but Joe Pyfer needing to pull out on the day of the fight. Joe Pyfer, the minus 380 betting favorite here against Kelvin Gastelum, who could be had at plus 290. Little bit different dynamic this time around. Some words said by Pyfer about Mexico, about, never fighting there again after, getting the shits or whatever, his trip down there last time. But now, stateside in New Jersey, Pyfer, crowd should be behind him. Regardless, though, this matchup serves as a great test to see if Pyfer can really cut it at the highest level. His lone loss since joining the UFC came in a matchup against Jack Hermanson, skilled athlete, And Gastelum's a very skilled veteran as well that will give Pyfer a new look compared to what he has seen. He's a southpaw, great boxing skills. Gastelum's always tough to knock out, has good hands, always in the fight, peppering his opponents with shots, moving in and out of range. And even here at the latter stages of his career, Gastelum still got a brick head, still very tough to put away, and still always live when his fights are on the feet. Pyfer holds the 4-inch edge in reach in this matchup, but Gastelum's deceptively long, and at times he lands his counters like perfectly. I'm really a bit concerned about him engaging for Gastelum for a while on the feet here. I think if this is a fight that has 15 minutes of kickboxing, uh, Gastelum's going to look a lot better than the plus 290 price tag. He might even win. Um, I think the better, more clear path to victory for Pyfer would be earning this decision by mixing in his grappling and showcasing his full arsenal of skills. We have seen Pyfer taking opponents to the mat before. He's a big middleweight. He's skilled on the mat. He has good jiu-jitsu. And Gastelum has just 59% takedown defense. He poses little threat when he's put onto his back. And when his fights hit the mat, it's just a matter of if he's able to get back to his feet or if he's going to spend the whole round lying there. Um, so yeah, I see this fight playing out one of two ways. If these two are going to engage upright standing, it's going to be very close, and I would rather hold the ticket for Kelvin Gastelum. However, if Pyfer executes a more solid game plan, I think good team around him, there'd be no reason not to shoot if I was game planning a fight for Kelvin Gastelum. I think more than likely that is what we are going to see. He's going to be shooting for takedowns, at least getting Gastelum to the mat on a few occasions here, and likely grinding out a win in that manner. And then again, the upside of he does have great hands, he does have great power. If he elects to stand and trade, he could always catch Gastelum, knock him down as well. So I think Pyfer's the rightful favorite. I'm really not comfortable laying this price tag on him in this matchup. Again, for the reasons I highlighted. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does just take Kelvin down and makes this look like a rather easy fight as it plays out. What do you think?
Yeah, this is interesting. I mean, when it was in Mexico, I actually think Kelvin was a little bit more alive because Pyfer in his loss in the UFC to Jack Hermanson, albeit in a 5-round fight, did fade late, and cardio really cost him. And obviously, at the elevation in Mexico in front of Kelvin's home fans would have been a difficult spot. Now he's in New Jersey. He's a Philly guy. I mean, that's a very close drive. He's going to have a bunch of fans in the stands, friends, family, etc. Maybe not family, if you know Joe Pyfer's story, but lots of friends for sure. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. I will say Kelvin is a very tough fighter to read from fight to fight. I mean, when he's at his best, he looks tremendous. When he's not, though, and this happens time to time, I mean, we've seen him missing weight. This is a guy who could probably make 170 pounds if he really dialed in. But yeah, back up at 185 here. He's going to be significantly outsized, 5'9" to Pyfer 6'2". Only listed a 4-inch reach advantage for Pyfer. I think it could be even longer than that, especially if Pyfer's throwing kicks. But I'm with you. I do think the clearer path is probably via the grappling. Pyfer, training with the guys in Philly, the likes of Sean Brady, etc. Very good grappling camp there. And yeah, I do think that's the clearer path. I will say I did catch in a Kelvin interview, he did have Pat Downey with him for this entire camp to really lean on the wrestling. Downey, a good wrestler, not a ton of success in MMA, but if anything, he does know how to grapple both offensively and defensively. And if you're game planning as Kelvin, your goal is probably to wear on that gas tank of Pyfer, take him into the third, and try to take over there late. I just don't know that he's going to be able to against such a big freak athletic guy like Pyfer. I do think Pyfer is definitely going to have dialed in that cardio. And again, 3-round fight here. If this was 5 rounds, I'd probably be on the Kelvin side. With it being 3, I'm a little bit more confident in Pyfer. I do think Kelvin could outstrike him in terms of volume. I do think he's the better defensive striker as well. Definitely ridiculous chin. Always been a strength of his in the UFC. But we've seen the likes of Drew Dober, Max Holloway. Eventually, these guys chins are going to crack. I mean, not that Calvin's Gastelum's getting up there in years or anything like that, but he's just taken some serious beatings throughout his career. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him KO'd here. I do think this fight probably goes the distance. I do think Piper's clearest path is on the mat, but I think regardless, again, in front of the home crowd, healthy this time. I mean, having 2 camps for him being the younger fighter, I think this is probably Pyfer's fight to win or lose. I agree. I don't like the price, near minus 400 now. A little bit insane, but I am on the Pyfer side. I think he gets it done regardless of how this plays out. Wouldn't be shocked to see him find the KO here, finish Gastelum on the feet for the first time in his career. But more likely than not, probably going to decision. Needs to mix in the grappling, but should be competitive if we get the best version of Gastelum. It's just, will we? Not necessarily something I want to be backing in any way. I don't like the price again, but I do think Pyfer's the rightful favorite.
All right, we will move on next to another matchup at bantamweight. This between Patchy Mix and Mario Bautista. Patchy Mix minus 180, the betting favorite in this spot against Bautista, who could be had plus 150. This is the UFC debut for Patchy Mix, coming over from Bellator, former Bellator champion. Very solid athlete. I've loved watching him over the years in Bellator. He's elite. Wins against Rafael Stotts, Sergio Pettis, Magomedov on 2 occasions. His only career loss coming in his first title fight, a close one against Juan Archuleta. Mitch is really solid, and he's going to fit into the fray nicely here in the bantamweight top 15. He's a little similar to Bautista in frame, honestly, in style too. Both blend it well. Mix, I would say, is the more dangerous fighter. He has those better striking instincts, more fluid, good in the clinch, great at using all weapons available to him, landing knees. Bautista tends to enjoy engaging in that close range, and I think that could be an issue for him here as he looks to, close that space and perhaps wear on or hold on Patchy Mix over the course of this fight. That is a dangerous area to be looking to go ahead and engage with Patchy Mix. This is also just a 3-round fight, which I don't know the last time Patchy Mix has only competed for 3 rounds after so many title fights over the years at Bellator. You should be able to push an even more frequent pace here. And I think that's why he is rightfully favored in this spot. He should be putting out better offensive output compared to Mario Bautista. And the shots that are landing, I think, are going to land with more sting, more power. There's just some about Bautista. He's an underdog in a lot of these fights. He's been putting together a tidy little win streak, training with a great team at the MMA lab. He's really solid, good athlete, knows what he's doing in there, knows how to win the fights. Even the occasion, the Jose Aldo fight, not winning in the most exciting fashion, but whether it be with his grappling, with his striking along the cage, he's doing what he needs to win minutes, win rounds, and ultimately get these decisions. This is very likely a fight that does see the judges' scorecards, and that's why I think Bautista is a very live underdog. I think, again, the more finishing equity in this spot would be Patchy Mix, doing it with his own grappling, but more likely with his hands. And that's why I'm picking him. I think he's the side in this one, but certainly going to be an exciting fight, close fight down at bantamweight. A good test for Mix as he enters the UFC here. Oftentimes, these guys coming up from other promotions tend to struggle in their first appearance, kind of getting their feet wet in the UFC. But Bautista's fringe top 10 of bantamweight currently, and I think Mix should be able to clear him based on the skills I've seen so far. Really, he's still pretty young, entering the UFC at a good time. I think the future looks bright for Patchy Mix, and I would hope that he's able to get past an opponent like Mario Bautista, although this may end up being a close one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. A few things I don't necessarily agree with, though. I mean, Patchy is an excellent grappler. I don't love his striking maybe as much as you do. I mean, he's shown power. Obviously, the knee to the head against Rafael Stotts was impressive. It was a knee, though, but it was timed perfectly. But I don't think that's something you could really count on fight to fight. He's very flat-footed, and he's a huge bantamweight. I think he's going to outsize Bautista here considerably. But on the feet, I mean, Batista's going to be much quicker. He has the much better footwork. I see him kind of moving in and out. I think the key to Patchy Mix getting the win here is definitely going to be his ability to take this fight to the mat. Really good grappler, excellent submission ability. We saw it against Sergio Pettis, who's a really solid grappler. I mean, we're going back through his career. Most of his wins are coming via submission. And unlike a lot of these guys coming in from Bellator, he is still in his athletic prime at 31 years old. Not the biggest window with it being kind of a smaller weight class, but we're comparing him to guys like Pitbull, MVP, even Michael Chandler. I mean, these are all guys coming into the promotion a bit hit past their prime. I mean, Patchy is in his prime. We haven't seen him in a year, but this is one of the few fighters coming over from Bellator that I think we can expect to show improvements, probably on the feet as well. Recently shifted camps over to Extreme Couture in Las Vegas. Bautista, man, I mean, he's good everywhere. I don't think he's great anywhere necessarily. I do think he's going to put out much more volume on the feet here. Again, I do think he has the better footwork. So if this is a 15-minute striking match, I think Bautista's decided. I'm pretty confident saying that. At the same time, I don't think it will be. So I'm going to be on Mix here, but I think he needs to get the takedowns going. I think he needs to probably find a submission if we want to be really safe and think he's going to be value at this number. I mean, again, if it goes 15, I think Bautista's having really solid minutes on the feet. Mix has some power, but it's not to the point that it's going to put someone like Bautista out, in my opinion. Again, I do think we see a really solid version of Patchy here, but we do need to keep in mind full camp for Mario Bautista, not necessarily a full camp for Patchy Mix, a guy who does stay in shape. He does train year round, but Bautista was originally scheduled to take on Chito Vera. Very different matchup, though, in that this is going to be someone who's going to be pursuing takedowns against him. Decent takedown defense for Bautista in the UFC at 66%. He's been on a nice run lately. Again, that Aldo fight, I thought Aldo won. Admittedly, I'm very, very biased as an Aldo fanboy, but yeah, did not love that performance, but he does know what it takes to win. I just think Patchy probably gets it done here as the bigger fighter, gets the grappling going, but I do think he needs to be effective early. If he doesn't win the first round, I think he's in trouble. We see Mix in a lot of his fights. He comes out aggressive. He looks great. And I was talking to someone recently. I said he's kind of the opposite of Peter Yan. He doesn't download information, but he tends to kind of overthink things as his fights wear on if they do get extended. Usually we see him winning kind of by early finish. In the Magomedov fight, I mean, that one could have gone either way. Not the best performance. Who knows what was going on behind the scenes there? And again, we are seeing him a year later, so I do think we see a better version of Mix. I'm bullish on him, but I do think the line is kind of where it should be, around -180. I'm not seeing a ton of value either way. I think if you're taking Patchy, you're kind of hoping that he scores that submission. Bautista has been submitted in the past. I think that's his clearest path. I think on the feet could be trouble, though, if he's going to just exchange for 15 minutes. But we'll see. We did see here Mix say, I'm going to submit him. I can submit whoever taught him jiu-jitsu as well. A lot of good shit talk coming from the Mix side, which we do love to see. And again, a guy entering the promotion in his prime, unlike a lot of these other Bellator fighters who've been coming over. So I'm on the Mix side, not super confident, though. But yeah, I do think he gets it done. I think he needs to get the grappling going, though. Very much the key to victory in this fight.
All right. And then opening the main card, we have a welterweight matchup between Kevin Holland and Vicente Luque. Kevin Holland -280, the betting favorite here against Luque, now 220, the underdog. What are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, man. Kevin Holland, one of the toughest fighters in the UFC to handicap, because we never know which version of him is going to show up. First and foremost, this fight is at 170 pounds. Kevin Holland is a much better fighter at 170 pounds than he is at 185. Coming up, that win over Gunnar Nelson wasn't the best performance, though. Nelson able to take him down, control him for a lot of that fight. At the same time, he was landing the better shots on the feet. Another kind of binary matchup here, although Luque is a much better striker than Gunnar Nelson. The issue in backing Luque, though, is that he's been dealing with brain bleed. A few doctors told him he should retire. Obviously, never a good sign. But I did back him last time against Garimbo. I believe I called him the best underdog of the year. Won that fight very quickly via submission. I just think Garimbo's overrated. That wasn't me really loving this version of Luque, who isn't old by any stretch, only a year younger than Holland, but he has been in wars, taken crazy amounts of damage. We look at the Jeff Neal fight, the loss to Buckley where he just kind of folded. I think Holland's coming in here super confident because he still thinks he's a better fighter than Buckley, and he saw what Buckley did to him, which is going to be interesting. I think if this fight hits the mat, though, Luque, much better submission grappler than, I won't say much better, but definitely a better submission grappler than what he saw against Roy Nelson. And then we go back to when Holland's fighting at 185, getting submitted by the likes of Ritter, injured against the Lidze. He needs to keep his standing for the most part, or it could get really dicey, but I think he will. I'm kind of preferring the Holland side here. I absolutely hate the price, though. I don't think this line is accurate at all. I think he should be, I don't know, closer to -150. So yeah, it's dicey. I think if he doesn't knock Luque out, Luque is going to be very live to kind of win this fight, either by decision or on the mat via submission. So, which Kevin Holland shows up? How washed is Vicente Luque? This is one of the more volatile fights on the card. So, if you're looking for value, it probably is on the underdog side. But I do think Holland gets it done. Just the guy who has really solid for the most part at 175 pounds. But this will be the first fight where I'll plug the article. Could see myself going either way here based on value. Definitely check that out Saturday morning. Dinesports.com. They will be tweeting that. We'll be retweeting that as we always do with our final picks. Not only which side we're picking, but the method of the fight as well. I do think Luque is live for the submission upside here. Right now on the Holland side, want to see weigh-ins though. We'll do a little bit more digging on this one, but certainly one of the more volatile matchups on the entire card.
Yeah, I like the breakdown there. I'm with you on a lot of the points that you hit. I'm leaning Holland currently. I think he probably does end up winning, but again, he opened at minus 180 in this fight, and it has steamed all the way to minus 280. As the public continues to bet on Holland here on a big pay-per-view card, I could see myself flipping and taking Luque as he really continues to shoot up in price. Yeah, the volatility of both fighters is the key. I worry about Luque and his ability to take punches against a power striker like Holland. Down at welterweight, Holland is much better, as you had highlighted. And yeah, I worry his length, his size, just constantly connecting with his strikes against Luque, putting forth a better volume. Luque could stand and trade shots too, but I really don't see him having much sustained success against Holland while this fight is on the feet. It would be more so in the realm of grappling that I think Luque holds his own here. Or if this fight does get extended, if he can handle Holland's power, certainly a path to win by decision as well. But close fight. I think Holland, in better form, looked good in the. I thought it looked okay in that Nelson performance. He got the performance of the night bonus for his showing there. And again, at welterweight, a completely different beast. Luque, the stage of his career, not somebody who I'm very often excited to bet on. But if you're going to give me better than plus 220, if he gets up to like 250 to 280 on the money line, I don't know how I don't take him. It's very hard to get to the window and bet Holland as a big betting favorite. We've seen him hit the bet a couple occasions before, and yeah, it's just not something you're going to make money in the long run doing. So should be a good fight. Should be one that Holland wins, but yeah, definitely keeping my eye on the odds there as well. And now we will look at the preliminary portion of the card. So main card starts 10 p.m. Eastern, the pay-per-view. The featured prelim before that, Joshua Van, flyweight, minus 700 against Bruno Silva, who could be had at plus 450. This should produce a very exciting fight to kick it off before the pay-per-view. This is Van's 8th fight in just 2 years since joining the UFC. Young guy. He's been incredibly active. I know you're a big fan of him. I like what I've seen out of him too. Quick hands, and able to really put on the volume as his fights wear on. Silva poses little threat late in his fights. A lot of the times he's getting after it early. He's getting in his opponent's faces. Brawler. He's got dynamite hands early on, and we've seen him with some grappling abilities too, but really he's just looking to go ahead, get in there and brawl. He was KO'd in his last fight, Bruno Silva. And I think, again, he's going to be dealing with a striker that has better technical skills when compared to him. Van, if he stays safe early, kind of keeps distance from Silva in the early going as he sort of downloads and finds his range. He should be able to do what he does, out volume his opponent over the course of 15 minutes and really put a hurt on him by, the end of round 2, the start of round 3. Van, a massive favorite, minus 700. I don't know if that's necessarily warranted. Again, I'd say Bruno's live for an early finish. But yeah, nothing we've seen out of Van so far makes me really want to fade him. From Myanmar, tough guy. And again, just what he's able to do with his volume over the course of 15 minutes is unlike a lot of guys, even at flyweight, the volume he's putting out. So I think he should be able to win this fight rather handedly. Might be a sketchy first couple minutes, I'm kind of predicting here. But after that, I think he's going to be on cruise control. We're going to see Silva really slow down. His main weapon's that big overhand right. And, as that starts to become more labored, as it's harder for him to connect with Van, who moves well too, in and out of the pocket, and his head movement has improved after his one knockout loss. Yeah, he should be able to clear in this fight. I'm confident picking him to win.
Yeah, definitely on the Van side here. Silva, this fight was actually scheduled to take place at UFC 313. Silva was forced to withdraw. They rescheduled it here, UFC 316. Yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, Silva coming off the KO, albeit against one of the division's top contenders in MLK, but he took a ton of damage in that fight. Silva, also one of the older fighters in the division at 35 years old. It's funny. I mean, at heavyweight, you're a baby at 35. You got 5+ years to get your career going. Bantamweight or flyweight though, like that's definitely a red flag. More so even at flyweight. Silva, a big guy too. He does have to cut a lot of weight to get it down into fighting shape here. But yeah, man, Van, the one knock on him is that he can be a slow starter, loses the first round a lot, regardless of who he's fighting. Does seem to be correcting that a bit, but we did see him knocked out by a guy in Charles Johnson who isn't really known as a KO puncher. So I do agree. Line probably a little bit swollen here. Silva does have power, especially for a flyweight. I think he does have that path to victory. And I agree with you, though. It has to come early. I think Van's going to know this. Superior footwork, much faster fighter, should be able to just stay safe for a round until Silva starts to fade. But after that, we'll see what happens. I'm definitely going to be on the Van side here. I think he's going to take over as this fight wears on. But yeah, gonna be a little bit dicey early. So maybe you can get a live entry. Maybe someone knocks him down. You get a better price. But yeah, very tempting to just pass on this one because the line does feel a bit inflated. A lot of people probably interested in maybe the Van round three. I will say that is an interesting bet, but usually when you're looking at round props, you're looking at plus 800, plus 900, especially the later rounds. I think he's around 500 most books. So yeah, books have caught up. They know Van likes to get those late finishes. I think that's what we probably see here. I think Van via third round KO is probably the outcome.
All right, moving on to the next one. Another heavy favorite, Azamat Murzakanov, minus 650. The betting favorite against Brendson Ribeiro, who could be had plus 425. This fight at light heavyweight. Murzakanov was originally booked to face Johnny Walker on this fight card, and the promotion, has now made the switch to Ribeiro instead. It's good we don't have to see an execution on Saturday with Johnny Walker stepping into the ring. But Ribeiro is kind of the next best thing. I mean, not a very dynamic or necessarily highly skilled fighter. I think the promotion would like to see Murzakanov stay undefeated as he continues to climb the ranks at 205 pounds. Not much in terms of elite competition at light heavyweight, and I think Murzakanov definitely fits in well here. He's fighting out of Fairfield and calls New Jersey home. So it's pretty cool here fighting in Newark. Striking dynamo. This guy puts on a show every single time. Very exciting fights. He throws shots that hurt his opponents. So over the course of the fight, he's going to be landing the better technical strikes against Ribeiro, but Ribeiro's going to be getting beat up. He's going to start to feel hurt, even by the end of the first round here. Ribeiro Cash has a plus 300 in his last fight, but I don't expect history to repeat itself, two in a row. It was kind of weird there. He was able to get that submission win by Kimura against Norgazai, but I don't think he's going to have the strength, even if he were to get that same Kimura grip on a guy like Murzakanov, much bigger, stronger athlete. I don't think he's going to be able to flip a position and get onto top position from bottom on the mat. Murzakanov isn't necessarily looking to grapple. He's going to be able to get it done with his hands here. And he's not going to be challenged standing against a guy like Brendson Ribeiro. Ribeiro moves in and out, throws big power, but really doesn't tend to land much. It's going to be tough for him to get in range and engage with Murzakanov. And, if he wants to take him down to the mat too, that's probably going to be a struggle. I think Ribeiro eats a lot of clean strikes here and eventually succumbs to the knockout, probably before the end of round two. Again, Murzakanov, I really like what I've seen out of him. Super technical. And again, the power comes with it. He's got that up here at light heavyweight, whether it be with his kicks, whether it be with his hands. He's really a dynamic striker. I'm high on the guy. I think he's going to beat a lot of guys at light heavyweight. So he certainly should beat someone like a Johnny Walker or, in this case, a Brendson Ribeiro that he's matched up against. Yeah, I'll be playing Murzakanov by KO here, one of my more confident picks on the card.
Yeah, I like Murzakanov as well. Undefeated fighter comes in here off a few nice wins. And yeah, I don't rate Ribeiro at all. I mean, he's 2-2 in the UFC coming off 2 wins. Negative striking differential though, and he's going to be the much bigger fighter here. 10-inch reach advantage is kind of ridiculous. But Murzakanov kind of deals with that in almost all of his fights at 205 pounds. Honestly, a guy who could probably make 185 pounds. But yeah, I don't think that's going to necessarily be an issue for him here. Really solid technical striker and excellent on the counter. And I think that's probably going to be where he finds his success. Ribeiro, a guy who does usually come in shot out of a cannon. Murzakanov, a guy who can be a slow starter, but against aggressive opponents usually finds that chin. Saw it against Monifield, saw it against Jacoby. Took him a little while against Tafon and Chukwi, but similar situation there. Really, really powerful for his frame. Kind of deceiving too. Almost like a smaller Fedor in some ways, which is kind of a ridiculous comparison to make, but at the same time, just doesn't really look the part, but he does have the skills. Good grappler as well. Ribeiro, big. He's done much better than I thought he would in the UFC, so he does deserve some credit. But again, a guy who's super hittable in exchanges, very aggressive as well, and that type of style should just play into Murzakonov's strengths here. So I'm right there with you, man. I think Murzakanov by KO, very likely to find that finish, if not in the first round, maybe the second, but should get it done probably early here.
All right. Next up, we'll look at a matchup at heavyweight. Serghei Spivac minus 140, the slight favorite against Waldo Cortes-Acosta, who could be had at plus 120 in this fight. Um, Pretty binary matchup here. This would be one between a striker and a grappler. Spivac looking to take this fight down to the mat where he is always at his best. Where Cortes-Acosta thus far in the UFC really looking good. Striking, keeping distance with his opponents, light on his feet, able to get in and out of the pocket well. The one knock I would say is a bit of a lack of power, an issue for Cortes-Acosta. Still has wins by knockout, won by knockout in his last fight. But in terms of that single punch power, he really doesn't pose a huge threat. It's more of punches in combination and, the damage accumulating as a whole that gets to opponents over the course of a 3-round fight. Um, Spivac in the past has really dealt with issues when it comes to dynamic and powerful strikers. He's kind of shelled up at times, but again, his recent losses are against like the likes of Gelton Almeida, Cyril Gahn, and then interim champion Tom Aspinall. All elite top of the heap at heavyweight. A guy like Waldo Cortes-Acosta is going to be tested by Spivac's elite grappling. He was taken down 3 times in a fight against Marcos Rogerio de Lima. That his one loss thus far, but his takedown defense is starting to improve. He stuffed 2 shots against Ryan Spann in that last fight. I think he could stuff a couple early shots here from Spivac, but if Spivac is relentless, knowing that that's where he's going to be able to win this fight, I think he should be able to get Cortes-Acosta to the mat at some point. And the difference between a guy like him and a guy like Marcos Rogerio de Lima is that Spivac is a legit finishing threat when his fights do hit the mat. He has great offensive jiu-jitsu. He has the ability to submit a lot of these guys at heavyweight. And we haven't really seen Cortes-Acosta brought down to the mat and challenged in those areas thus far. I think Spivac's a whole nother beast for him to try and deal with. And again, because he isn't a one-punch like power threat guy, it makes me a bit more confident picking Spivac to get the win here as the grappler. Even if it's tough for him to get his hands on Cortes-Acosta early, I think he will get him down to the mat at some point. And then whether it be by submission or by just controlling him on the mat for the remainder of the fight, I'm pretty confident picking Spivac to get the win compared to where these odds are. He should be able to fight smart. Cortes-Acosta too, maybe not throwing as much with the fear of the takedown. Needing to be careful with his approach, not just unloading the hands when you're facing a guy like Spivac that could just, blast through and take you down to the mat. So I'm taking Spivac in this one, slight betting favorite. Curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I actually think Spivac's one of the better value sides on this entire card. It is heavyweights. They are volatile. Cortes-Acosta is the better striker in this matchup, so he could always find the KO again, heavyweights. But I just think this is kind of two different levels that we're dealing with here. I mean, Cortes-Acosta has been solid coming off that win over Ryan Spawn, who's really a light heavyweight, moved up for that fight, didn't really bulk up to get the heavyweight, just kind of came in out of shape. Went over to Spania, who was completely exposed on the ground, no longer in the UFC. Arlovsky in his mid to late 40s, no longer with the promotion. Bresky, who I don't rate, then losing to Rodrigo de Lima, the one grappler he's faced in those last 5 fights, and that's what he's going to be dealing with here. Serghei Spivac, more than 4.5 takedowns per 15 minutes in the UFC. Don't even think he needs that many here against Cortes-Acosta. If he can't find the submission, I think a ground and pound finish is very likely. And yeah, I do think there is a world where Cortes-Acosta is a little bit more conservative with his striking, just knowing of the threat of the takedown, like you mentioned. Two guys with a 78 reach advantage here. Cortes-Acosta usually has that reach advantage over opponents. Won't have that here. Spivac, not a great striker by any stretch, but he has been improving. I do think he's going to drag him to the mat here, find the finish, probably early. Cortes-Acosta, again, always live for the upset via KO, even though he's not really known as the power threat, just because it is heavyweights. Things happen. We've seen Spivac finish in the past. But yeah, I'm pretty confidently on the Spivac side. I think he gets it done inside the distance, probably early. And yeah, I mean, we've seen him take down the likes of Derek Lewis, Marcin Tybura, and find finishes against them. Two guys I rate much, much higher than Cortes-Acosta as strikers and as defensive grapplers, if we're being completely honest. So I think Serghei's the side here. A little bit surprised the price isn't even more inflated. So I do think he's one of the better money line picks on this card. I do think he gets it done probably inside the distance early. I just don't rate Cortes-Acosta's grappling at all.
All right. Next up, let's look at this matchup at welterweight. Khaos Williams, minus 200, the betting favorite against Andreas Gustafsson, who could be had at plus 160. What are your thoughts on this fight here?
This is a tricky one for a few reasons. First, because Khaos Williams is wildly inconsistent, kind of similar to Kevin Holland. Don't know which version of him we're going to see here. Coming off an ugly loss to Bonfim, and I mean the win over Bedoya is just not a great win. Very narrow decision against the guy who has not really done well in the UFC since that fight that he took on short notice. So yeah, which version of Khaos Williams are we going to see here? At the same time, this is a pretty good stylistic matchup for a really good counter striker in that Andreas Gustafsson is the guy who likes to come forward, hyper aggressive, going to get in there and exchange with him, going to try to push him up to the against the cage and work him there. But Khaos, very good technical striker, does a good job finding counters against fighters like that. We've seen it in the past against a bunch of guys, but I don't know, man. It is kind of tricky. So on the Gustafsson side, he was supposed to fight last week. He's going to be making weight for the second time in 2 weeks. Never a great sign. The reason I picked Bilal against Della Maddalena was because of that Basil Hafez fight. But the reason Della didn't really look great in that fight was because he had to cut weight twice in 2 weeks. I mean, we've seen it all over the UFC. Whenever guys are cutting weight 2 times in 2 weeks, if they do have to make significant weight cut, it's just never a good sign. So I want to see how Gustafsson looks at weigh-ins. I want to see how Williams looks at weigh-ins. He almost always looks great, but going to do a little bit more digging. Not a guy who was on the main interview panel for the UFC, so I haven't done a ton of research in terms of media yet. This was a fight that was put together on very short notice. I do think the KO for Williams is very live. Gustafsson charges in. I don't like the 2 week weight cut, so right now I am on the Williams side. But again, if I find reason to fade Williams, I do think Gustafsson wants it more at this point in his career. It's just kind of tough to gauge Williams where his head's at. A guy who was very impressive coming into the promotion, far exceeding expectations, but it's kind of fizzled over the past couple of years. So again, tough fighter to get a real beat on. Gustafsson, want to see how he looks on the scales. Two super aggressive guys. I'd be surprised to see this fight go the distance, excuse me. Right now on the Williams side, but not confident at all. One fight I do need to do a little bit more digging on for sure.
All right. Yeah, I'm on the Williams side too. Also, not the most confident pick of mine. You mentioned the short notice nature of this fight. Obviously, the concerns with Gustafsson cutting weight 2 weeks in a row. Williams had a fight booked with Jeremiah Wells for last weekend that fell through, but that fell through prior to him going weight cut or anything like that. So he should be peaking at the right time and then getting a fight here. Just a week after what he was planning for. In terms of matchups too, Gustafsson was scheduled to face Trevin Giles last weekend. I was picking him confidently, but with a bit of reluctance as a decent betting favorite. Just because Giles is a guy I like targeting, betting against for the most part. Williams, I perceive as a much tougher matchup for Gustafsson because of his power and because of that power threat coming back at him. Gustafsson's not going to be able to do what he normally does and engage recklessly in the pocket where he is at his best because of Williams' dynamic power threat. Williams also too normally very measured, looking to land those big counters and things like that. Sometimes falls behind opponents in terms of striking volume, just because he is kind of sitting back, waiting for his moment, waiting for that big counter shot. But over the course of 15 minutes, it is only one that he needs. We've seen that on occasions before. And again, if Gustafsson isn't careful, minding his P's and Q's as he enters the pocket and looking to engage with Williams, I very much expect them to get flipped here. And yeah, just to not really to beat the point dead, but we talk about the double weight cut. We talk about the double weight cut. It's always bad, but it's especially going to be bad if you're facing a dynamic power puncher. And that's really all that Williams is. He's well rounded. He can hang anywhere. We've seen him prove himself at the UFC level. But it really is his hands that get the job done for him a majority of the time. Gustafsson, exciting entrant into the promotion here, but yeah, I really don't think he's going to be able to do much to hurt Williams other than get the better of him in one of those reckless exchanges where he's just as live to get starched, knocked out too. So I'm with you. I'm on Khaos Williams in this one. I'm thinking the same way as you too. Probably a fight that does not see the judges' scorecards. If you want to go no distance on this one, I certainly would not mind betting that as well. And now on to the early prelim portion of the card. We'll look now at a fight between Wang Cong, the minus 400 favorite, here against Ariane De Silva. This fight at women's flyweight, De Silva, not great. 17-10 now her professional record, facing an athlete in Wang Cong who's sort of on the ascent here. Ariane more experience in the UFC, surprisingly younger than Wang Cong, but I mean, you look at what the UFC's been doing lately. They match her up against Jasmine Jasudavicius in her last fight. She gets dominated. Karine Silva, the fight before that. And now here she is again, going up against one of these high-level prospects in Wang Cong, somebody who formerly winner against Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing match. That's something people will hold on to, even though it's 10 years ago, just because it creates some hype here in the women's divisions. And again, she does have dynamic striking. She is somebody that could very much develop into a legitimate title contender in the future. Just getting her start here in MMA and the UFC a little bit late, but all signs point to her clearing in this matchup. 10 times the striker that Ariane De Silva is. Obviously, some concerns if this fight is to hit the mat and De Silva is perhaps able to engage more there, but De Silva likes to strike just as much as anyone. We saw her submitted in her last fight. Never really known for her offensive grappling, even though she is a Brazilian. I think Wang Cong should be able to pretty handedly clear in this matchup. 400 seems like about the right price for her. Again, just a much better striker, super technically sound, great kickboxing. She should be able to put a beating on De Silva. I think she wins here on Saturday.
Yeah, I am on the Cal Wong side for sure. I will kind of proceed with some caution. Again, we're getting a very inflated favorite here. It is women's MMA. We did see Kong Wang in a matchup against Gabriela Fernandez, who I actually think is worse than Ariane Lipski as a massive favorite. Got a little bit too confident, got caught, knocked down on the feet, and then finished on the mat there. Not what she had planned in coming to the promotion. Did bounce back nicely though against a tougher opponent, Bruno Brazil, her last time out. Showed a well-rounded game, still 100% takedown defense in the UFC. As a primary striker, obviously you do love to see that. In spite of the fact she was finished via submission, got to remember she was knocked down before that. That's why she was able to be finished on the mat. She's shown excellent footwork, which makes her very difficult to take down, averaging more than 6 significant strikes per 15 minutes, absorbing just under two. Better striking differential than even Sean O'Malley. Just ridiculous on the feet, Cong Wang so far in the UFC. De Silva, I mean, she's decent. Her best win is probably the one over Casey O'Neill, which she found via armbar. Probably her best path to victory here would be to try to take this fight to the mat. I just think she's going to have trouble kind of closing the distance and keeping up with the footwork of Kong Wang. And yeah, I don't love the price. I do think Wang gets it done. This is a big pay-per-view card. UFC obviously always looking to build that Asian market. I think that's what they're doing here. De Silva coming off back-to-back losses. I wouldn't be surprised if they kept her with another loss here. I mean, she is relatively marketable. I had some fans even coming into the promotion. Super inconsistent though in the UFC. When she was kind of spiking in terms of her, I don't know, prime and upside when she had that win over O'Neill, over Gatto, over Aldridge, she was training with I think Amanda Nunes, and I don't believe they're sharing a camp anymore. Obviously, Nunez quote unquote retired. So yeah, I don't know. I think Kong Wang gets it done here. I don't love the price. Probably more value on just trying to back her to get it done inside the distance. Frustrating that she couldn't do it against Bruno Brazil. But yeah, Brazil to me a much more durable fighter with actually better footwork than Lipski da Silva here. So I'm on the Wang side. Don't love the money line price, but I do think she's certainly the rightful favorite.
All right. Next up, we have a matchup at men's featherweight. Joo-sang is a big favorite here against Jeka Serghei. You could be had minus 500, while Serghei is plus 350, the betting underdog. All right, so very solid, 8-0, purple belt in jiu-jitsu. He's a solid striker too. He likes to strike, but I would advise against that here, facing an athlete in Serghei. Really nothing more than a big right hand. We saw Serghei's poor grappling exposed in his most recent performance. He was sub by armbar against Weston Wilson as a minus 360 favorite. And now the market has certainly adjusted as he's the plus 360 underdog this time around against, yeah, an athlete in you representing the Korean market. Certainly somebody the UFC probably would like to continue to build. Should have a decisive advantage if this fight does hit the mat, utilizing that jiu-jitsu to probably attempt submissions and the sword against Serghei. And again, I like what I've seen out of you on the feed. It's just I think it's tough to warrant a minus 500 price tag on him in this matchup. Again, Serghei, well, he really was an awful performance his last time out. We have seen him put together a couple spectacular wins, or I should say unexpected wins. And thus, as a big betting underdog, I certainly think him, his power, what he possesses with that big right hand could get him the win this weekend. But I would probably favor you still in this matchup. Watching the tape, he's solid. And again, when it comes to bringing his opponents to the mat, utilizing his grappling, I think Serghei just has so many holes that he could be exposed when his fights do get down there. If Weston Wilson's able to get you that quickly, and Wilson is a good grappler, but you, purple belt, should be an even higher level, and I think he poses a lot of the same threats. So, a pick for me that I'm confident making, but I would not be confident betting. Again, minus 500 is too much, I think, on this relatively unproven fighter. 8-0, facing a more experienced opponent. And yeah, again, I think Serghei at this number certainly has some outs, certainly live for the upset win by KO.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the theme of this card. A lot of guys who we think are rightfully favored, but maybe the price is a little bit too wide. I think that's what we're getting again here. Joo-sang Yu fights under Korean Zombie. It's one of his main proteges. His last two fights coming for ZFN, which is Zombie Fighting. I don't know what the N stands for, Fight Night. But yeah, he's been one of the guys that they've been touting over there. Obviously undefeated. getting a little bit of a late start into the UFC at 31 years old, but definitely a guy who's had some solid regional wins even before fighting for ZFN, fighting for AFC and Brave CF, which are two solid regional promotions as well. A guy who they're not making go through the road to UFC because they do see value in him. And yeah, I do like him as a prospect. Really good wrestler, decent jujitsu, decent striker as well. Just very solid technically, though. Not a guy who I think is going to make a lot of mistakes. Can't say the same for Jeka Serghei, a guy who is super aggressive. That win over Lucas Alexander was impressive. I definitely wasn't on him in that fight. But then a huge favorite last time out gets finished by Weston Wilson. KO'd by Angel Jubilee in his UFC debut. Obviously, not a loss that's aging too well at all. I do think Yu gets it done here, probably inside the distance. I just think he's the much better technical fighter. As long as he minds his P's and Q's, stays safe early, I think he could win it on the feet. I think he could win it on the ground. Again, I just think Sergey's dangerous, but so wild in his style. Anyone with solid technical ability and fight IQ should be able to get it done. Yeah, protege to Korean Zombie, very high fight IQ fighter for the length of his UFC career. I think he's backing this guy for a reason. Not sure if he'll be in his corner. Wouldn't be surprised to see it though. But yeah, UFC likes this kid. Definitely a prospect. I think they're going to try to build for a few fights before they test him too much, even though he's already 31 years old. Serghei, fun fighter, going to go out there, go nuts. But yeah, usually out there to make someone else look good. I think that's what we're seeing here. Again, they put him in there against Jubilee because they wanted the Indian market. Lucas Alexander, I don't know what they were doing there. Maybe just trying to get him a win. But yeah, he was a huge underdog in that fight. And then Wilson, not a guy who's probably going to hang on the roster too long. So it looks like Sergey's one of these guys they're going to kind of use to build prospects. He will find the opportunistic finish from time to time. I just don't think he's going to find it here against you. So I like you here, probably inside the distance. Agree, the money line's a little bit insane for a debutante, minus 600. Ugh, gross. Maybe just take him inside.
All right, next up, another big betting favorite here on the prelims at lightweight. It's going to be Killen Selkilde, minus 650. The favorite here against Yanal Ashmouz, who could be had plus 425. This one I probably am going to go to the window and play some of. I do like Selkilde in this matchup. Ashmouz's last fight, he got it done as the underdog against Trevor Peek, using his grappling there, well-rounded. He's just a guy with poor striking defense, small for this weight class, and that's going to be a recipe for disaster against an elite boxer like Killen Selkilde. 3 inches taller with a 7-inch edge in reach here at lightweight, and yeah, both these fighters 8-1, but Selkilde was much more technically skilled. You see the fluidity of his striking on the feet, coming off a KO of Anshul Jubilee in his last fight. I think that was one punch he threw in that one, and that was all he needed. But yeah, this Australian has elite boxing skills. Another matchup where I kind of expect him to cruise. 25 years old, super high ceiling out of this kid. I think he's going to continue to build, and the UFC knows what they're doing with the matchmaking here early on. Ashmouz just like no fight IQ that I've really seen. Kind of, defensive woes and, puts himself in position to get hit a bit too often. Selkilde, super high rate of significant strikes landed. And again, he's a boxer. He can put it together in combination. He's really going to hurt a lot of opponents when they aren't able to, counter or engage grappling against him. And yeah, again, Ashmouz was just sort of spamming takedowns against Peek because that was, Peek was rushing into him. He was moving forward and just converting takedowns because that's what was available to him. I think if he is going to shoot here against the likes of Selkilde does have decent, grappling chops of his own to pair with his elite striking. I don't really see a clear path to victory for Ashmouz winning this one. So I think Selkilde should be able to put his hands on him, win rather convincingly here. He's live to even win by submission. So, well, I would say just bet him by KO, bet him by KO. Probably instead looking at an inside the distance prop on Selkilde here. And then, yeah, playing him on the money line and a lot of the parlays I'll be building. I'm pretty confident in him getting the win here this weekend.
Yeah, again, I think the line's a little bit too wide, but I'm definitely the Saw Kill side. Really well-rounded fighter, at least it seems so far. I mean, tough to glean much from that win over Jubilee. Pretty good performance against Gage Young, though, on the Contender Series. A lot of takedowns in that first fight against Gage Young, and I think he could lean on that here against Ashmouz if he wants to. But on the feet, he has a 6-inch reach advantage. I mean, Ashmouz has outperformed what I expected out of him coming into the UFC, but at the same time, he's kind of been fed the right opponents. KO went over Sam Patterson, a guy who's since moved up a weight class. Really shouldn't have been down there, draining himself and compromising his durability. And then the win over Trevor Peak. I mean, good win, but Peak probably the least technical striker on the roster. Really fun just because he'll take a million shots, throw a million shots back. But yeah, I do think Salkild going to come in with a pretty solid game plan. Could take this fight to the mat if he wants to. I think he's the much better striker on the feet here as well. Outside of getting caught on the chin, Hashmuz does have shocking power for his frame, I will say. I do think he gets it done pretty convincingly, probably inside the distance. I'm with you in saying, though, don't just take the KO. I think the subs here is equally as live. I mean, going into the Jubilee fight, everyone thought he was going to take Jubilee down, work with the submission. He just didn't need to. He just completely starched him immediately. So here, I mean, probably a little bit more difficult. Ashmus does have pretty solid durability. If you can't find the KO, probably could find the submission. So I do think Saul kills aside. I do think Ashmus continues to be disrespected on the money line, though. I mean, minus 550 for a really young prospect in Saul Kill, probably a little bit wide. But at the same time, I mean, tough for me to find the path for Ashmus outside of an opportunistic KO. I just don't think he's necessarily going to find it here against a much better technical striker than he's been facing lately. So I'm on the Salkill side, and Ashmus one UFC loss. Chris Duncan just kept taking him down again and again. He's looked okay wrestling against guys who can't wrestle, but I do think he's actually going to be outclassed there as well. So much bigger fighter, much better pretty much everywhere. I think Saul killed outside of getting caught on the chin. I think he does find the win here, likely via finish.
All right, one more fight to take a look at here. This one at lightweight between Markel Medeiros and Mark Choinsky. Medeiros minus 210, the betting favorite against Choinsky, who could be had plus 175. This is short notice booking. Medeiros falling ill. Pause for his pullout last week ahead of a fight with Balaji Oki. And now he gets the debutant Choinsky here in this matchup. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this was tricky. A fight I do want to spend a little bit more time on. Got made earlier in the week, so again, we haven't had a ton of time to research it. But yeah, man, Madero's pretty good prospect, but it's like he's kind of gaming the system. I mean, he pulls out against Oki, gets a probably better opponent here. Obviously, is a big favorite. Did the same thing when he got Austin Hubbard on short notice. Was scheduled to fight Evan Elder. It's just kind of fishy. And again, I don't know that he tried to cut weight last week. Something worth looking into. Again, never really like guys that are having to cut weight twice in 2 weeks. And Choinsky, I mean. I don't know where to rate him. I mean, he looks pretty solid on the regional scene against pretty low level of competition. He is a good wrestler. His striking's better than I thought it would be when I started checking him out. But yeah, man, I mean, he is going to be the much smaller fighter here. I think he's going to have trouble closing the distance on the feet. He's going to need to get his wrestling going. In the same breath, though, I mean, we did see Medeiros kind of struggle to stay on the feet against Austin Hubbard, who was taking him down. Not a guy really known for his wrestling. So I think there is a path for Choinsky here if he does choose to lean on his grappling. But given the short notice nature of this matchup, kind of difficult to back him. I do think there is some value on him as an underdog on a card we're starving to find good underdogs. Maybe he's someone I end up picking. Right now, I am on the Madero side. I just think he's bigger, more athletic. But a fight I do want to dig a little bit more into. I want to find out more about that illness for Medeiros. I want to find out if he even tried to cut weight. And then do want to look into Choinsky, who was scheduled to take on Zach Zane at Anthony Pettis FC 17. His last few fights have been with Anthony Pettis FC. Pretty decent regional promotion on UFC Fight Pass. So it's not that he's completely taking on bums, but I don't know. I mean, taking on lower level guys, even with that promotion, tough to really get a good read on him, but he does seem well rounded. Just not sure he'll have the physical attributes to keep up with Medeiros here, or close the distance and continuously take him down. Again, a fight I need to spend more time on. I do think the line's a little bit too wide, though, as it currently stands. On the Medeiros side, zero confidence. Wouldn't be surprised if I ended up flipping here.
Yeah, I'm echo a lot of the same sentiments regarding this fight. The one thing I will say is the guys that Chwinsky has beaten. are all terrible. I mean, this record is awful. And again, you say he had a fight scheduled against Zach Zane. I mean, Zach Zane 15 and 15. I'm looking at him now, and his last three fights are in slap fighting. So, I mean, again, the guys that he's facing are not very good, but as you highlighted, decent wrestling skill set. He probably could take down Medeiros in this fight, and that would be the clearest path to victory for him. It's a fight that's favored to go the full distance. So that's why I kind of think over the course of 3 rounds, Medeiros should be able to do enough with his striking, using his distance, keeping space between him and Choinsky, and then able to win in that manner. But yeah, it really is a very tough fight to handicap because we don't know what we're getting out of Choinsky. We haven't seen him tested against an actual like athlete before. We haven't seen him have to absorb a lot of strikes and how he handles that. And if he could respond by just blasting through and scoring a takedown if Medeiros is putting his hands on him. Um, I feel the same way too. It's weird that you pull out of a fight against Oki and then you're ready to go like the next week, against a regional level opponent. Yeah, Troitsky appearing solid. I was kind of thinking the same way, maybe just take a shot on the underdog because this card is lacking them. But these odds kind of closed a bit too. Now only getting plus 175 on Troitsky. I don't know if that's going to be enough to tempt me. Um, I'm leaning Medeiros for the time being. He probably will be who I end up selecting. We'll use this one more time to remind you, please check out our write-up on Dine Sports on Saturday morning for our final picks and predictions for each and every one of these fights. But yeah, for the time being, I think Medeiros, again, using his size, and yeah, the striking is solid from him. I think Austin Hubbard is a very good grappler, high-level grappler, who is able to take him down. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the same case for Cholinsky here in this matchup. So I'll go with Medeiros here for the time being. And yeah, it's a great fight card. UFC 316, Dvalishvili versus O'Malley 2 this weekend. We appreciate you all for watching. Tune in, check out the pay-per-view, and as always, check out Dine Sports for your prediction content, not only UFC MMA, but all other action as well. We appreciate you watching and enjoy the fights this weekend.